regarding senior exemptions. There's a homestead exemption in Cobb County that applies to those individuals 62 years of age or older that are property tax holders, property owners that have applied for a homestead exemption. And what it allows them to do is opt out of paying any of the school tax. And there are individuals who have come to members of the Board of Education and said, why don't you do something about that? Just so you know, the Board of Education has no authority whatsoever to make any modification to that provision. That is actually written into the local legislation of the Georgia Constitution. So it would actually be an amendment to Georgia's Constitution if that was to be taken away. Now, one of the things I would also offer is that the senior tax exemption has done a lot to help the stability of home prices in this area, because you have many seniors, for example, living on fixed income and so forth, but they're low leveraged in their properties. And by low leverage, they probably have little or no debt. They may not have a mortgage payment. And the senior tax exemption, it works very, very well for them. To give you an idea of what the burden might be if that was ever to be lifted for a senior, you're probably looking at, and I ran the numbers a long time ago, but for a mid-price, a home in Cobb County, I think priced at about $250,000, that would equate to about $1,400 annually, or easily more than $100 per month on a senior. So, what are the questions?
One of the questions that came in was, what are we doing to address the lottery issue? Last year, it was determined that the existing funds were, well, I should go back. 6 years ago, the governor tried to create what he called the Hope Chest, which is to permanently exclude K-12 funding to be taken out of any lottery funds. That failed. Last year, the General Assembly, there was a study done to look at the funds that are available that come from the lottery, and it was determined that there were insufficient funds to fund the way we calculate HOPE and also fund pre-K. So they did a significant rewrite, and for those of you who have high schoolers or getting ready to high schoolers, you probably know that they changed the qualifications. You still have to have a 3.0 for HOPE, but then you get 90% of the 2010-2011 tuition rate charged at a university if you have HOPE. And if you have a 3.7 when you graduate from high school, you get full funding or full tuition. They've gotten rid of paying for the book fees and other fees. So what they determined was they really can't afford to, and they also cut back how much money they had available for pre-K funding. So at this point, and listening to the dialogue that's going on down at the Capitol right now, I would be very surprised if they would be willing to look at providing funding for K-12. What they have done is changed how the money can be spent a little bit. It used to be that in QB funding, they only allowed the funding to be used for textbooks. Now they're changing that to include, or to be the category we call instructional materials, understanding that our children are learning differently. Some school systems are using bring your own technology and are getting rid of textbooks and are only making the software available and the books available